pretty colored girls who are storming the stage doors of those productions. You could neither stand the life that those girls live, nor are you pretty enough or light enough in color.
It is such a horrible game. I guess I'm going through this to learn some lesson. You're Edna.
Edna Guy never gets a job dancing. She is too dark for the chorus line and entirely the wrong color for modern dance. She supports herself as a domestic, office assistant, and whatever she can find, before landing work as an artist's model.
My dear Miss Ruth, it seems as if every artist of beauty has to go through a great deal of hardship and suffering. But I know in my heart it's lovely to dance and let people see the beautiful body that God gave us. I shall be the first colored girl to make the world see that a little Negro girl, an American, can do beautiful and creative dances. As always, you're Edna.
When black artists started to dance in the 20s and 30s, not only were they coming up against resistance for a variety of social, political, and cultural reasons, but they were coming up against a fear of looking at something different than has been seen before.
The unique thing about dance itself is that it truly exposes the individual performer in a way that they are not exposed in any of the other arts. The color of the body's skin becomes very important in how this particular art form is perceived by audiences. Some people bring with them certain associations about who that person is. For example, that person is sensuous, that person is exotic, that person is threatening. Ideas that are ingrained in our racial perceptions of each other in society.
I love my body. I think my body is beautiful. I have always believed that the theater was a place of transformation, and that my body, my whole being, would become a conduit for experiences that were greater than I. But there is a completion that comes when you know that you have everything you feel, everything that you think has been brought together through the medium of your body. That really drives why I am a dancer.
Finally, in 1924, Edna Guy prevails and is admitted to the Denishawn School in New York. Eager to please Ruth St. Denis, she masters the school's regimen of breathing exercises, balletic movement, and Eastern-inspired dances. But after 3 years of training, Guy is frustrated. Her only performances have been in-house recitals. The dream of becoming a Denishan dancer seems more elusive than ever. Moreover, when she looks outside of the school, she can't help but notice how varied the modern dance world is becoming. Helen Tamiris, a white dancer noted for her social activism, is teaching classes in Harlem. Her best-known work, the dance suite Negro Spirituals, is regarded as one of the first modern dance works to draw from American source material. Hampton Institute, a black college in Virginia where modern dance is being taught, is pioneering the choreography of black folk dances. Charles Williams, Hampton's physical education director, codifies them in a book titled Cotton Needs Pickin'. But it will be African dance that makes the biggest impact upon audiences in the late 1920s. The spark is a young West African dancer and singer, Asadata Dafora, who comes to America attracted by the focus on African themes during the Harlem Renaissance. Dafora settles in Harlem and sets out to create dances based on his study of West African folkways. He merges his choreographic vision of African dance with Western staging. Such a synthesis had not been seen before. His ostrich dance is a prime example of this fusion.
Critics were enthralled. The simple fact that these critics had never seen dance and music of Africa presented in such a polished setting, in a theatricalized version. They had never seen this before.
The articulation in the shoulder girdle, the articulation in the pelvis, the thing that we called isolations, in which the dancer moves a part of the body separate from another part of the body, all come out of the African tradition in dance. In fact, without the African contribution, we probably would not have had American dance as we know it.
By 1930, it is evident to Edna Guy that she will never dance with the Denishan Company. Even though she is one of the school's better performers, her options are limited. Unsure of where to go, she hangs on as St. Denis's seamstress and wardrobe assistant. But through it all, Guy's letters proclaim unshakable faith in the dance. She finds solace in works she creates with friends based on the spirituals her mother loved, moving her farther and farther away from the world of Denishan. Her newfound independence creates friction within the school.
She really defied the definition of who a black girl who aspired to any kind of entertainment was to be at that time. Edna Guy was connecting to her inner spirit. She's talking about African American culture as she experiences it, as she perceives it, as it has affected her own personal life.
Ruth St. Denis is touring continuously, trying to raise money to keep the Denishon Holdings afloat. Her marriage is crumbling, and with new dancers entering the field, interest in her aesthetic dancing is waning. While on tour, St. Denis receives complaints that Edna Guy is no longer fitting in at Denishon. As tensions mount, Guy is asked to leave the company.
Dear Edna, I'm afraid there is considerable misunderstanding between us. Someday all mists will clear from your mind, and then you will see clearly and forever that I have been and still am your best friend. Ruth St. Denis.
Ever since I've known you, I've given you all my devotion and love, but now you say I'm selfish? My friend Mary always said not to put so much belief in you, that you were like all other white people. But because you had beauty, I stayed. Everything is ending in error.
Edna Guy is 23 years old. On her own now, she connects with other aspiring black choreographers in New York City, notably Hemsley Winfield. Winfield has been presenting theatrical works since the mid-20s, developing broad audiences for black performers. In 1931, he and Guy collaborate and stage the first Negro Dance Recital, a concert showcasing the artistry of their work as well as other African-American dance artists.
Edna Guy is an example of how community functions in African America. She had to reach out and touch other members of the black dance community before she could find some sort of through line to find what was inside of herself.
Despite Guy's promising start, her desire to establish a company of her own is thwarted by America's descent into the Great Depression. Like other dancers at this time, Guy has to be inventive just to survive. Maintaining a steady troupe is out of the question. But even in the midst of hardship, opportunities for dancers do materialize. In 1933, the city of Chicago stages a World's Fair titled The Century of Progress to gloss over the Depression's misery. To involve African Americans, a special day-long event is mounted, featuring reenacted scenes from history, mass choral performances, and dance. Organizers hire a college student and budding choreographer named Katherine Dunham to recruit and train dancers.
There were about 30 of us, and she walked over and she said, "I'm Katherine Dunham." At this time, we didn't know who she was, and she extended her hand to me, and I just knew I would dance forever, because this is what I had been waiting for all my life.
After the event, Dunham retains a few of the performers to become the core of a new dance company, a goal she had sought for years.
Katherine Dunham had chosen 6 or 7 of us, and she asked if anybody would be interested in becoming a member of this company that she was forming. And of course, I was the first one to raise my hand.
Dunham calls her troupe the Negro Dance Group, and though it enjoys some local notoriety, attracting audiences is an ongoing struggle. Dunham wonders whether a future in dance is truly viable and continues her academic career, concentrating on anthropology at the University of Chicago. During one course, she learns about the work of Melville Herskovitz, a prominent local professor, who is a driving force behind the study of African folkways.
What makes the 30s an important moment for discovering African culture has to do with anthropologists during this time period, many of whom have traveled to Africa, and those who haven't have at least traveled to Haiti or Cuba or Jamaica, places that still have strong evidence of African folkways and language and movement still very much alive and well in those communities.
When Dunham sees footage Herskovits filmed of indigenous West African dance, her own ideas about the relationship between culture and society crystallize. She resolves to merge her two passions, dance and anthropology.
Miss Dunham is an adventurer. She wanted to get into the African culture. I think she had this burning desire to be exposing her audiences to something new and different. She always wanted to educate her audiences, not just entertain.
Not long thereafter, a board member of the Rosenwald Foundation attends one of Dunham's storefront concerts and learns the young dancer is studying to be an anthropologist. It is suggested Dunham ask the foundation for funds to do field research.
Picture going in front of the Rosenwald board to ask for money to go study dance, which had never been done before, had never incorporated anthropology and dance before. And she's this little woman from Glen Ellen, Illinois, going in front of this very powerful board to ask for money, $2,400, which was a lot of money.
Dunham proposes to study dance in Africa. Legend has it that she appeared before the board, dramatically stripped to her dance togs, and provocatively demonstrated what she wanted to study.
I would not audition that way. For me to snatch off my skirt, and well, I was far too modest, and stand there and rehearse in shorts, I don't know what I would have had on, and do some primitive movements, was not possible. So I had to be able to get that fellowship and still be holding my honor on high.
The Rosenwald Foundation decides to sponsor her trip, but suggests she take a crash course in field anthropology with Melville Herskovits. He warns Dunham that it may be dangerous for a woman to travel alone through the continent. Instead, he suggests she explore the roots of African culture transplanted to the New World in the Caribbean. In June of 1935, Katherine Dunham, armed with her notebooks, movie camera, and a head full of research ideas, departs for the islands.
Senorita Panchita, a Spanish girl. You'll find that the hills have a kind of internal strength, but deceptively smooth and soft in outline. And the trees are spread thick foliage. And then, of course, the wind blowing, and you see the swaying, whether it is sugarcane or coconut trees, swaying, you get that kind of rhythm as well. These are the sort of things that visually make an impression on the choreographer.
You see the people coming from the mountains, the people who are going to sell in the market. They have the basket, fruit basket, vegetable basket on their head, but big, large basket, full, and they don't even touch the things balance on their head, and they're coming down. But the way they're walking, their skirts swaying. Like they're dancing. While they're not dancing, they're just walking. But to people looking at them, you see them dancing because they just swing, swing, swing.
Dunham's first stop is Jamaica. There she lives with the Maroons, a people in isolated mountain villages who were the first Caribbean slaves to wrest their freedom from a colonial power. From the Maroons, she learns firsthand how deep-rooted African ways are in the New World. In Trinidad and Martinique, she studies how traditional African dance movements have been fused with European steps and dance figures. But it is Haiti which has the greatest impact on Dunham. The island has been independent since the early 1800s and unfettered by colonial rule. African customs and dance have become deeply woven into the fabric of daily life.
And there's this sense of this incredible kind of root African culture that is very much at work there. Haiti has this aura of independence, but also of the unknown blackness that is both alluring on one hand, but also scary on the other hand.
She could see clearly in the Caribbean the things which had been driven underground in our own United States. A place like Haiti, they were able to shape their own way of being, their own sense of self on their own terms. And that is what the dance is about.
From the minute I went there, I could see that I could not learn the dances without knowing the people. I wanted to find out the style, formation, type of choreography, type of steps used, and so on and so on, for this single community to have made a firm part of their culture.
Catherine wanted to live with the people, to see how they live and how they act, and in doing so, sharing their life. She managed to have their confidence so they could reveal things to her and let her attend ceremonies that they wouldn't let, other people would not.
The ceremonies Dunham attends include Vodun rituals. Vodun is a blend of African and Catholic practices, and dance is an integral part of the religion.
Vodun is a religion that came from the west coast of Africa, Dahomey, Guinea, Senegal. The words Voodoo means spirit. It's a general name for all deities. It is a set of beliefs and practices which deal with the spiritual forces of the universe.
In attending these ceremonies, Dunham is a rare witness to rituals where the dancers become possessed.
The most difficult thing is to describe possession, because it's not something you can describe to anybody. It's a spirit that mounts the person. They say mountain because you're like a horse. The person becomes a horse, and the person who is riding the horse controls the horse.
Dunham spends months in Haiti. In time, it is suggested that she become initiated in the Vodun religion.
I didn't ask to be initiated, but you were picked out for a reason. And my reason was because I did the Yombalu well. That kind of rhythm, which was slow and which was very involving the whole body, and what you'd feel quiet and soft and slow, and so big at the same time, was wonderful.
You can see it. The rhythm is Yombalu, is bim, bim, bam, bim, bim, bam, bim, bam, bim, bam. It's a slow rhythm, a dance of supplication, a dance of prayer, and it's just very moving very slowly because it's you're imitating the movement of the snake. You keep singing that song all the time, but the movements are very fluid.
I'm sure that Miss Dunham, in going to a lot of the ceremonies, experienced almost out-of-body experience. Not being possessed as they were, because this was their culture and their training and their religion, but simply for the joy of movement. And anyone who has ever danced, and you finally conquer a movement that you've been working on for ages, knows the joy of the body and the mind and everything coming together. Unison of the movement, the heat of the room, the smell of the room, the beat of the drums, those little ladies dancing. She got caught up into it totally. And there's no better joy than for your body to just dance. To just dance.
In the fall of 1936, not long after her return from the Caribbean, Katherine Dunham receives a letter from a committee of black dancers in New York, requesting her participation in an all-Negro dance concert to be staged the following spring. The organizers declare their aim is to show the public that the Negro has made an important contribution to the dance world, a fact not previously emphasized. On March 5th, 1937, 2 days before the event, Dunham and her company drive through a snowstorm to New York, barely arriving in time. The concert takes place at the Kaufman Auditorium of New York's 92nd Street YMHA. Asadata Defora, the noted West African choreographer, performs, as do several other prominent dancers. The concert is a milestone, showcasing the best of the black concert dance scene, and is well received in the mainstream press. Dunham and her company perform the Yanbaloo, which few in the audience had ever seen, and though it is well received, it is not the concert's most popular dance. The highlight of the evening is a piece performed by a former aesthetic dancer who is also principally responsible for staging the event.
Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. My Lord John
she dances one of her spirituals, which she had developed over the years into an art form. Her solo is the culmination of her quest to dance on the stage and perform works which came straight from her heart.
Every time I feel the spirit moving.
Years later, though still in her prime, she would suffer 2 heart attacks and stop dancing forever. She, more than anyone else, had for over 2 decades personified an ambition to dance. Her name is Edna Guy.
Every time I feel a spirit moving in my heart, I will pray.
Next, as great performances continues.
She had that power that when she came upon the stage, you had to look at her. This was Katherine Dunham.
Asked my captain for the time of day, took out his watch.
Other black choreographers followed Dunham's lead and brought their own distinctive stories to the concert stage. As Free to Dance continues on Dance in America.